And the irony that they moved it to accommodate this slap crap, this nonsense.
Barbaric comedy, but it's not funny at the end of the day. Like, it's absurd and it's stupid.
And why it's a problematic money grab by greedy promoters.
Perhaps the most absurd and senseless sport in the world is about to go mainstream.
But this is not my cup of tea.
Speaking of tea, the word slap was first recorded in England around 1632 and refers to the act of striking a person with the open palm of the hand. The purpose of a slap is often to humiliate more than injure, and a slap in the face is a common idiom dating back to the late 1800s that means to rebuke, rebuff, or insult.
Richard! Oh, wow!
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth!
Wow, dude!
It has rarely been utilised as a weapon for knocking someone unconscious. After all, it's far harder to generate the same amount of force as a punch or kick. But this is exactly the crux of why slapping competitions have begun to grab the world's attention. It truly is a Russian roulette as to when someone will be sparked out cold. There is no guarantee. According to Black Belt magazine, slap competitions seem to have originated in Russia. It has been claimed that strongmen alternated between slapping each other until someone fell unconscious or gave up. The sport then spread into Eastern Europe, with it being popularised from a series of viral videos starring 375-pound Russian sensation Vasily Kamotysky. Known as Dumpling, Kamotysky was seen in one video knocking a massive opponent unconscious to win 30,000 rubles or roughly $475. From around 2020 onwards, punchdown events have taken place in cities across Poland, which has played a major role in seeing the sport gradually trickle into the Western world. In February 2022, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Logan Paul joined forces to launch the Slap Fighting Championship in the US. The event debuted at the Arnold Sports Festival in Columbus, Ohio between the 2nd and 5th of March 2022. According to the rules, there were 3 rounds with each competitor slapping their opponent once per round. 3 judges then marked the score in order to work out a winner. A knockout was scored if a competitor was unable to continue 30 seconds after being slapped. The event proved to be a success with an abundance of notable highlights.
That jaw. Here we go. Mad Max. Oh!
Since then, the UFC president Dana White has launched his own version of the show, known as Power Slap. The show was due to premiere on January the 11th, 2023, but was delayed till a week after due to the release of a video in which White slapped his wife in a Mexican nightclub at a New Year's Eve party. And that, my friends, is irony. Upon airing, the show itself was far less popular than originally anticipated, drawing only 250,000 viewers, whilst its professional wrestling counterpart program, AEW Dynamite, was attracting upwards of 1 million. Consequently, on the 13th of March 2023, Warner Media and TBS representatives confirmed to media sources that the network will no longer air Power Slap following the first season finale.
Oh, man. Oh.
Is he knocked out?
Now, in the show's short shelf life, it has received a torrent of criticism and created controversy, primarily concerning the health of the participants. I have already made a video in which I cover chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, a disease which arises when an individual receives consistent blows to the head, so do check that out if you want an in-depth breakdown of the topic. Anyway, it's believed that this new sport unnecessarily exposes participants to the risk of developing CTE as they simply wait to be struck without protecting themselves. Many specialists have pointed to one of the show's contestants displaying the fencing response after being struck, an indication of serious brain injury. In addition, a number of combat sport athletes also had a negative view on the ordeal, with boxer and WBC champion Ryan Garcia calling Power Slap a horrible idea and saying it needed to be stopped. Meanwhile, UFC fighter Sean O'Malley stated that he refused to watch Power Slap due to its association with brain injuries. Nevertheless, Dana White fired back at his critics with this.
But in slap, they take 3 to 5 slaps per event. Fighters in boxing take 300 to 400 punches a fight. And guess what? You know what my answer to that is? If you don't fucking like it, don't watch it.
On February the 16th, 2023, things got even worse for Power Slap as 2 congressmen, Bill Pascrell and Don Bacon, announced that they were launching a congressional inquiry into the ethicality of Power Slap. Both have publicly voiced their disdain for the organisation for turning the brutal spectacle into entertainment. Furthermore, in early March, the Florida Athletic Commission has stalled a request to open a slap fighting league pending advice from medical experts. It seems that the rapid expansion of the sport has begun to falter. So, let's address Dana White's claim that boxing is more dangerous than slapping contests. Well, firstly, in boxing you're taught to camouflage your punches so that you can set up a big punch. If a person winds up too much, then the opponent will often be able to identify it as a threat and slip, duck, or even block it. It's therefore a complex skill to land a massive hit with a person's full force behind it, and doesn't happen all that regularly. On the other hand, in slapping competitions you are able to wind up, and the other person just has to brace themselves to take it. As the training improves and people deliver more powerful slaps, things can only get worse. Ultimately, when these guys get knocked out, it's a proper concussion, like one from being hit with a baseball bat. This fact was all too evident at one particular competition held in Poland, named Punchdown 5. Dawid Zalewski faced Artur Walczak in a bitter slapping duel on October 22nd, 2021, which resulted in Artur suffering a cerebral hemorrhage and unfortunately passing away. A monumental slap from Zalewski had severely damaged his brain, compelling doctors to put him into a drug-induced coma from which he would never wake up. The second point that leaves slapping as a far more dangerous endeavour than boxing is the variation in rounds across the multitude of organisations. In boxing, the maximum of 12 rounds rule has been somewhat standardised, yet certain slapping federations don't impose stringent limits upon how long a bout can go on for. This obviously leads to more horrific injuries and long-term consequences. In late January of 2023, a man was left with a disfigured face after a brutal 30-minute slapping contest. The bout was held in Romania, where the Romanian MMA promotion organisers allowed the striking to continue for 10 rounds unchecked. Komsa Sorin's face was left completely disfigured and covered in blood after 30 minutes of indefensible slaps from his opponent. It often isn't the fingers that are connecting with the opponent's face, but instead it's the palm which does somewhat emulate a punch. The prolonged periods of unchecked hits is simply a recipe for disaster. The third big problem is the fact that, in certain countries, the rules seem to allow a person's entourage to hold them up after receiving a massive hit. This obviously prevents the body's defense mechanism of shutting down or being knocked out from doing exactly what it is there to do, protect the recipient. This can obviously lead to head trauma being repeatedly worsened throughout a bout, contributing to the individual developing CTE. Ultimately, different organisations have adopted a variety of safety measures to try and protect the participants in slap competitions. This has ranged from implementing the compulsory wearing of earplugs and mouth guards to putting spotters in place to stop a person's head hitting the floor once they fall. But this has appeared to have little effect in protecting the slapping individuals or dampening the widespread criticism from the press and leading experts. In spite of all this bad press, the recent months have seen unprecedented growth in the sport, with leagues arising in the UK, Nigeria, Germany and Southeast Asia. Even betting companies such as DraftKings has determined the sport to be safe enough to hold bets on, and is now operating in 9 US states. So what do you guys think? Could this become the new MMA, boasting a global reach and adoring fans? Or will it simply slump under the weight of the negative public opinion? Let me know in the comments, and as always, please leave a like and subscribe if you're new.